Almost every week now in Ottawa, I'm speaking to people who are torn between walking into a sales center and buying a new home to take advantage of the new HST rebate, or make an offer on a resale property in a neighborhood that they already know and like. Most of them think the decision comes down mostly to taste. Do I want fresh finishes? Do I want that new carpet smell in my house? Or do I want a little more space and mature trees in my backyard? But it's not just about taste. It's also about money, risk, and timing. And most of the people get at least one of these wrong. In this video, I'm going to break down for you the key differences between buying a resale property in Ottawa right now and buying brand new, including the hidden costs that a lot of buyers don't see coming until close to or on closing day. Let's get into it. Let's start with the new build process, because this is a process that I think really surprises people, both in how it plays out and in how much it can cost extra from the sticker price. The first thing to know is you're buying a promise, not an actual home that's been built. In a lot of cases, when you're buying a new build property, you're buying from a builder plan, maybe a 3D rendering, and basically taking the word of the builder rep. Even if you're lucky enough to find a model home for the exact model that you want to look at, these are often not available. You're going to see a fully upgraded model that you'll probably have to pay an additional tens of thousands of dollars to get a comparable unit from the base model, which is probably the price that brought you in the door. Another thing to keep in mind is the unusual deposit structure. The way it typically works, it does vary from builder to builder, is you're going to pay 5% at the signing of the agreement of purchase and sale, 5% after 30 days, another 5% of the purchase price after 90 days, and then a final 5% at occupancy. This is a good chunk of your money that gets locked up before you even get a key. This is much higher than a resale deposit. That's a lot of capital that's just kind of sitting idle in the builder's account for a long period of time. And speaking of timelines, that's another key difference. For a new build in Ottawa right now, especially since the HST rebate came in and people are getting more excited about new builds and there's more of a backup, you're going to be waiting likely at least 12 to 36 months to get into your new home in Ottawa. And this is if there's no delays, which, to be honest, this can happen pretty often. Now, other than just being a longer time to wait to get your new home, this can actually have real life implications. If something happens in that 12 to 36 months, you lose your job, rates change, something in your financial picture changes substantially, this could affect whether or not you can get financing on closing day. And unfortunately, you've already signed a contract, so you would have to find a way to close no matter what. Another thing to consider when you're looking at new builds is that the sales rep works for the builder, not for you. They are paid to sell upgrades and sell properties, not to protect the buyer's best interest. They are there to protect the builder's best interest. So if you do decide to buy a new build, it doesn't cost you anything to bring your own real estate with you. Just make sure they're with you on that first appointment to represent your interests and walk you through the process so that they can basically look out for your interests, because the builder is going to be representing themselves. And lastly, with new builds, the purchase agreement is very long, very complicated, and very weighted in the builder's favor. It's very different than the standard agreement of purchase and sale that you're going to sign for a resale property. It's very important that when you get this contract, you take some time to send it to your lawyer to do a thorough review, and they can explain exactly how it's stacked in the builder's favor so you understand what you're getting into. And builders are pretty good about this. They will have no problem giving you a week or so to send it to your lawyer to review the agreement. Another thing to consider is who the builder is. Now, I'm not going to get into naming specific builders because I don't think that's fair and I don't want to get sued. But ask an experienced realtor which builders are great and which builders are good to look out for, because they are definitely not all built equal. Builders all over Ottawa have different reputations, and it's important you know who you're dealing with before you go ahead and sign that agreement of purchase and sale. Now, this gives you a pretty good idea of what the builder process looks like from beginning to closing. But now I wanted to drill in a little bit more on some of the extra charges that can come up that people don't always see coming. So if we take a look here at the closing day, these are some of the surprises that can await you. Now, the first one that people often don't see coming, and this is something your lawyer will have to take a close look at the agreement of purchase and sale, is the extra development charges. Now, the builder does their best to estimate the development charges so it's not a surprise for you. However, there will probably be a clause in there, and your lawyer can confirm this, that will say if the development charges go up, you are going to be responsible, you the buyer, for paying the difference in the development charges. And development charges have been increasing over the last few years. So if you're waiting 24 or 36 months till you take possession, there's very real possibility that there could be an increase in those development charges that will be passed along to you. The next thing to watch out for, and this is something we touched on briefly already, is the cost of upgrades. If you're fortunate enough to see a model home that matches the floor plan you're looking at, it's not even a good chance, it's a certainty that whatever that model home has in it, everything from the granite countertops to the nice gas fireplace to the finished basement, is not something that's going to come in the base model. It's going to be something that you're going to have to pay extra for, and you can very easily spend $20,000 to $40,000 on extras. It can honestly be more than that, depending on what it is that you're looking to get done. And the last thing I like to remind people about is resale properties will often have landscaping done because people have lived in there previously. That is generally not the case for new build properties. You will normally be doing any sort of landscaping, whether it's patio stones, whether it's a certain way you want to do the driveway, or putting in a flower bed or a fence. All of that is going to be at your expense in a new build property. So keep that in mind as well. So the total extra costs that can show up on the closing day are extremely variable, but I put here $30,000 to $100,000 beyond the purchase price, depending on how hard you go on the upgrades, depending on what the development charges look like, what that change has looked like over the last few years since you purchased it, and depending on how much landscaping you want to do. Just bear in mind, there are a lot of extra costs that could sneak up on you if you're not careful. Now, I don't want you to get me wrong. It's not all negative when it comes to buying a new build. There are some genuine advantages to buying new. The first is customization. Because you have an opportunity to have a say on what the place is going to look like before it's actually begun being built, you have a lot more say over variations to the floor plan, over finishes, all these sorts of things that are often much harder to change in resale properties. You also have a Tarion warranty, which lasts up to 7 years, 1 year for workmanship, 2 years for major systems that need replacing, and 7 years for structural things like the foundation. So you are protected in a way that you aren't on a resale property. If you move into a resale property and realize there's an issue with the roof or a hole in the drywall that you missed, you're pretty much you have to fix it at your own expense. Whereas when you're working with the builder, you can put a call into the builder for the first year or two, depending on what the thing is that needs to be fixed, and they will be able to come and do that for you. This is real protection, and it's a legitimate advantage of new builds over resale properties. And another big advantage that just came out in the last few months is the HST rebate that you've probably heard about in the news. Most builders now are actually advertising at this price with the HST rebate. They're still working on exactly how it's going to be rolled out, but you can save basically 13% on the price of the new property if you qualify. So you can save a ton of money there off of the sticker price. So that's something to consider as well. As I said, most of these companies are now advertising that price as what the actual purchase price of the property is going to be. So that's kind of baked in as well. But that's something that's really spurred a lot of interest in new builds in the last little while. Now, we'll spend a little bit of time talking about the resale process as well. This is one you're probably a little more familiar with. It's likely the process most of your friends and family have gone through in the past. But basically with a resale home, the biggest difference is what you see is what you get. I can't tell you how many times I've toured people through model homes or pre-construction options, and they get really excited going through the model home, even while I'm constantly reminding them that these are all upgrades that you're going to have to pay for. The base model is going to look substantially different than what you're seeing right now. That is not the case with a resale home. With a resale home, if you see hardwood floors and granite countertops and a nicely landscaped backyard, that is what you are going to get when you move into the property. There's no 3D rendering or diagram to buy off of. You get to go in and look, touch, feel, smell what the property is actually like, so you know what you're getting before you buy. The other big advantage is established neighborhoods. One of the worst things I find about new developments is that it does take time for them to fill in, and there's a lot of ongoing construction that's happening after you've moved in, if they're building more homes kind of down the road. So this is something that's a real disadvantage, but does go away over time as the trees start to grow, as more people move in, and it starts to feel less like a construction site and more like a community. And that segues well into the next point, which usually resale neighborhoods, there's already an established community. and a neighborhood association, events, all that sorts of thing. All big advantages if you're looking for kind of a family-friendly neighborhood. The other big advantage is move-in timeline. The typical closing date for a resale property is anywhere from 60 to 120 days. So instead of having to wait, 18 or 36 months, praying that rates don't go up too much more and that your financial picture stays the same, once you find a resale property that you like, you can basically go ahead, offer on the property, and be fairly assured that things aren't going to change too much before the closing date. Negotiation is another big plus side and big difference on the resale side of things. You will see an ask price when you go to offer on a resale property. And the difference between the builder is they'll give you a sticker price, but that sticker price is very likely to go up for all of the reasons that we just discussed. Whereas in this current market, resale homes, you can often negotiate the price down from that asking price. And while there is no Tarion warranty, which is a genuine disadvantage, if you notice something on the inspection or you notice something while you're touring the home, you can ask the seller to repair it or negotiate those costs off of the price of the property. Getting a home inspection in and of itself is also a huge advantage that you don't get with a new build. Although if you notice something in the first year of a new build, they will come and fix it for you at no cost. Some of the downsides are obviously the older mechanicals. There could be a furnace that's 10 or 15 years old. There could be a roof that needs to be done. All of these things will likely be identified on the inspection, but you will need to find a way to repair those if they aren't repaired before closing or you don't negotiate them into the offer somehow. And in some price ranges for retail properties, there is still genuine competition. Not the way there was a few years ago, but you could end up in multiple offers for a resale property. For a new build, that's not the case. You are dealing directly with the builder, and it's very unlikely that someone would have the opportunity to come and snatch that property away from you once you have reserved it. So in summary, this is kind of the highlight comparison for new build versus resale. The new build really does make sense if you don't need to move for at least a couple of years. If it's a longer term plan, you're okay renting or living where you are for a little while longer, then new builds can make sense. If you want to choose all of your own finishes and just live in a brand new home, it's another advantage of the new build properties. If energy efficiency is something that's important to you, all of the appliances and major systems in the home are going to be newer and relatively state-of-the-art. Things like tankless hot water heaters, high efficiency furnaces, that sort of thing. If that's something that matters, that's a real advantage of the new builds as well. You don't have to pay to put those in the way you would with a resale property. The Tarion warranty is probably the biggest advantage of buying a new home, is you have that peace of mind of knowing that the major systems are going to be repaired, not at your expense for the first few years. But one thing about the new builds is you want to make sure you have a decent financial cushion available in case some of those extra charges come up to haunt you. Resale makes more sense if you're looking for a quicker timeline. If you want to close within the next few months, resale makes a lot more sense. 6 to 12 months is pretty common from when you start the process of looking for a resale home to the closing date. If you want schools, established transit, and communities, resale is going to be the better option for you. Also, if you want to be able to negotiate the price, put in conditions like inspection and that sort of thing, resale makes more sense. First-time buyers without a large cash buffer, I would say resale is generally the better option for you because A, you have to put down much less of a deposit for much less long a period of time, and you know what you're getting. You have to pay the $600 or $700 for an inspection, but you'll have an excellent idea of what extra costs you'll have to put out once you move in to the new house. One of the biggest questions you should be asking yourself if you're considering a new build or a resale home is, can I afford to lock up 15 to 20% of the price of the home for a longer period of time? And how stable is my financial picture? Now, my take here, as you can probably guess just from kind of the tone of which I've been talking about it, is I think resale is generally the better option for most people. Now, the HST rebate has caused a real significant decrease in the new build prices compared to what they were before. The builders are pricing this in a little bit, I find, but it's definitely something that's caused people to take a closer look at the new build idea. I find the resale transactions are a little more straightforward and forthcoming. You go and see a property, you decide whether or not you like it based on what's physically there. You get an inspection, you do your due diligence, and then you adjust the offer, you make negotiations as necessary. The new builds I find can feel a little bit uncomfortable, a little bit almost deceptive, I've heard people say, although there's no actual deception going on. But going and seeing a model home and then realizing that you have to pay tens of thousands of dollars to bring the base model up to that standard is something that I find often really ticks off new buyers who aren't familiar with the process. Either way, I think it's important to bring a realtor with you to represent you, whether you're buying a new build or buying a resale, definitely. Have that conversation, have somebody there to represent your interests. And if you're buying a new build, absolutely make sure you have plenty of time to send the documents to your lawyer to review and give you a good idea of what that agreement actually means for you. I hope you found this helpful. If you have any questions about either process, please don't hesitate to reach out. It would be a pleasure to help however I can. Thank you again for taking the time to watch, and have a fantastic rest of your day. Take care.